A very good afternoon to you all. Hope you're all doing well. In this video, what I'm going to touch on is a subject that comes up quite often. It's should you basically email clients that aren't advertising on job boards? So basically, if they haven't got a job vacancy, should you email them? Should you contact them? Should you reach out to them to offer your recruitment services? Now, if you've seen a lot of my videos or a few of them, you probably realize I teach people to go on job boards, find vacancies of clients that are actually recruiting right now and email them. The reason I do that, the quickest way to actually start to generate business is to have people that actually have a direct need and are contacted. Now there's a plus side and there's a negative. I'm going to go through everything now. I'm going to give you some statistics. So if you look at Indeed, for example, and you look at how many jobs are in the market, how many employers are actually posting jobs, there's probably about 200 to 250 thousand jobs. So it's like 200,000 jobs, let's say, on Indeed live vacancies. Now, if you look at the Office of National Statistics, there's actually about anywhere between 500, so 500,000 jobs, and 800,000 jobs. So in theory, a quarter of the jobs aren't actually advertised on job boards. They're mainly on careers pages. They're filled, through referrals. So there's a lot in the market that isn't actually on the job board. So I'm teaching people to go on the job boards. The reason being, the best results are going to be yielded from live vacancies. Now, what I mean by that, live vacancy, is they have a need. So if you're looking to buy a car and somebody contacts you and says, I've got a car that matches, the color, the make and the model, you're more likely to engage with them. Actually, if you're not looking for a vehicle at that time, you're less likely to engage with them. So that's the reason and the method behind it. Also, it's the easiest way. I'll give you an example. For a nurse vacancy, if you contact clients in a specific demographic and company size, you probably have to send anywhere between 60 and 300 emails. Now, if the company isn't actually advertising jobs, or you can't see it on Indeed or any job board, you're probably going to send maybe up to 1,500 emails to actually get a client in the end. So there is a big difference. Now, the flip side of that, or the positive and negative, it's much harder. You have to go through, kiss a lot of frogs to get the prints. However, when you actually boil it down, when I've looked back, the clients that I've reached out to that didn't have vacancies advertised on job boards actually were still using agencies, and it's a better quality of client, and you end up actually making more money from them rather than the generic job boards where a lot of recruiters go on. I've talked, there's probably thousands of people that are doing my methods now, well, way more than 1,000. I've met people that do that method solely. So if you are in competition, your competition is going to be less if you go directly to employers that are not advertising. And also you're looking at companies that are going to give you sometimes exclusivity. They probably sometimes pay more as well. Now, don't get it, sort of the misconception could be that every company is recruiting at the moment. That's not the case. The case is, if you look at the massive corporations, they actually don't need recruitment agencies because they fill it in-house. They're headhunters, they employ in-house headhunters. So they don't necessarily need recruitment agencies. Now, there's another side where employers only use recruitment agencies. They don't have an internal team. They don't advertise the job themselves, but they always have live vacancies. All they do is have it on their careers page. So those companies are sort of the golden egg. They're the ones you really want to attract. I'll give you another example. I've, in the past, I've contacted companies that have said to me, CADS, we're looking to get rid of someone. We're going to fire someone. They cannot know about it, so we can't advertise it. Yeah. Or there's a big project coming up. We can't be seen by our competitors to be advertising the position. So in theory, the only option is to go through recruitment agencies. They can't set up another business and register it under that name. They have to operate like that. So I've had to sign NDAs before when I've recruited, so I can't disclose who the client is at some stage, just in case that candidate tells a competitor they're working for. So there are a lot of elements into it. It's quite a complex subject. It's not a blanket answer like, you shouldn't email companies that aren't advertising, or you should. There's specific companies that you really need to target. And the only way you're going to do that is by prospecting. You're either going to be cold calling, you're going to be cold emailing. So a number of tactics I use is, you need to get some sort of database online. Let's say you're recruiting for mechanics and you're in London, or let's say East London. So you want to go on Google and you want to type in East London mechanics. And what you want to do with that is you want to cold call or you want to email all of those people and say, we offer this service. Grab the data, store the data somewhere and market to them, bi-weekly or, once a quarter, send it out. That's what a lot of the big agencies do. Once you've got the data around that, you want to just target them. If you build up a big list of, let's say, 20, 30,000 sort of contacts in that sector, more likely there's going to be a time where if they're not advertising it, even if they are, they're going to come back to you. And there's going to be a time where they're going to need your service or they're going to want your service. So it is really, again, about data and volume. So going back to the initial point is, yes, for the first 3 months, you should only, and I recommend only, recruit on people that are advertising live vacancies. And the reason is you want to get some traction. This is going into your sort of, once you make about 4 or 5 placements, maybe even 10, then you want to step up to directly contacted. Once you've got your client base, the whole method I teach long term is once you've got the client base, you want to go back and target the companies that you haven't targeted because they aren't advertising jobs. Like I showed you before, that statistic from the Office of National Statistics compared with the job boards is about 20% of actual vacancies are on there. So you're missing out on a massive target market, and that's Office of National Statistics will only pick up the top 50% of companies. So I would say that that job vacancy list is probably upwards of 1 million job vacancies at the moment. So you really just want to be targeting. Now, the trouble you're going to find is when you start to target companies, you need to have a specific offer. You need to be in their face so they know you all the time without coming across as a pushy spammer, which is quite difficult to do. How do you keep them notified? Do you put them in a newsletter? Nobody wants to read your newsletter because they don't have a need for your service. What do? Do you just market to them constantly? People unsubscribe. So it's your method to build a relationship long term with that person or those people that you want to recruit for. Build up a relationship long term. And if you really, really want to work with them and they use agencies, because I've looked at companies before and I thought, you can go on Indeed, you can filter out, you can do a very specific location for a very, very specific search, and you'll only see like 4 agencies, no employer. So that's an indication that there is an employer there that is actually recruiting. That's the way I find them out. So I go on Indeed, I search. If I only see recruitment agencies, chances are there's some employer there. So you can go into Google, you can find out who it is, try and work it out. It's a manufacturing company in Bedford, this particular postcode. And then I would start to contact, there's 20 manufacturing companies. I would offer my proposition, offer my service. And that's the best way to go about it. And that's probably what I would recommend. So in a nutshell, first 3 months, or once you got your client base, if it's not 3 months, you can do it quicker, you can do it slower. Go off of live vacancies. After that, you want to sort of slow down the business development, but get a bit more quality of client. And you want to be putting the fees up as well. You want to also be saying, I've got candidates. So it's not just a case of, I'll give you another example. A company is not recruiting a salesperson, but if you have a really good salesperson that can bring in £250,000 revenue and you can prove it, and their salary is only 50,000, that employer is going to think that's a no-brainer, because if I hire that person, they will create a job for them. If you've got someone really good developer, for example, or a nurse, I've spec'd nurses in, and clients have said to me, we aren't recruiting for a nurse, but we'll definitely take one if you have a nurse. And I don't mean it in a rude way, like take a nurse, but I meant as in we can create a vacancy. So there's a lot of options out there for you. So make sure you are following steps. By all means, it's going to be much tougher for you to go out there and actually start to contact companies that don't actually have a vacancy, because they'll just email you back or call you or just tell you on the phone, we don't have any vacancies. So it is really about huge and large numbers. Are you going to have the time to do it? Is that going to be your focus when you employ someone once you've got some cash in a business? There's a lot of things that sort of, play a factor in it. It's your sort of, how can I put it? It's your decision as a business owner to home in on that and see, is this the right method for me? What works? I could probably very easily just, recruit on job boards. and a lot of people teach it. But if you're going to start speccing in candidates to companies that don't have live vacancies, that's probably the best way to go about it. So I hope that answered your question. I hope you enjoyed this video and it's been somewhat informative. If you need anything from me, as always, please reach out and take care.